Hello and welcome to all of you listening into this podcast. So today we have with us Jim Lescop, founder and MD of Decarboneaser. Today we have chosen a topic by name Climate Education for Action. We'll look at why climate literacy is a missing link between awareness, compliance, and real business action. So in the due course of the conversation, we will touch upon multiple aspects such as climate literacy, from corporate comfort to climate conscience. We'll also look at Climate Fresk. That is a 3-hour workshop that Jim runs. What is how the mindset shift has to happen. We'll look at the time, resistance, and reality. Why organizations push back on this climate literacy. And to wrap it all up, we'll also look at how to make climate personal. That is from moving from compliance to consequence, right? So this is a broad range of topics that we're going to cover for on this podcast. So Jim, I think we'll kick it off right from the top. That is looking at your career. So you switched your career at the age of 40, meaning you spent the last 2 decades in corporate training, and now we have switched to sustainability. So what changed at 40? That is question number one. And for the listeners, could you give a quick introduction to who you are, what is your background, and how did you end up in this very role presently?
Hi, Roshan. Glad to be with you today. Thank you for the invitation. So to answer your first question, what changed at 40 for myself after 20 years working in business? Very simply put, I have 2 kids, and I couldn't face the moment they would come to me and say, "Hey, Dad, you knew about what was happening. What did you do about it?" Or, for instance, what did you not do about it? So that's very simply my answer to that question. At 40, it was just long time overdue, and I decided to make the shift.
Right. So was it just the children, or did you have a certain moment of realization early on that sustainability is something that we got to uh, practice or take up as a way of preserving this environment, or rather the planet that we know of, for the generations to come after?
Look, it's been a long time in the making, in the sense that it was about 20 years. I was very conscious of what was happening, from plastic pollution to obviously carbon emissions, but also the impact on biodiversity. So it's been really 20 years where I knew about it, but as we will talk a little bit later, I'm sure, I didn't, feel I was in the best situation or time of my life to actually make the shift. That's why it slowed me down. But at 40, it became obvious I couldn't wait anymore, and that's why I decided to do that shift then.
Right. So prior to starting Decarbonizer, what was the kind of role that you were pursuing then?
So you mean when I shifted?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when and I mean, you were in Australia prior to this, right? So I mean, you were into corporate training. So what kind of trainings did you undertake when you were in that very role?
Sure. So to give you a bit of background about myself, I graduated from a business school when I was 22 or 23 years old. From there, interestingly enough, I learned how to sell, how to do merchandising, do marketing, all those wonderful things that we now take for granted in any business. And I think at this stage, I was thinking, I'm not sure I really want to be selling products to people. So my first role actually was working in banking. I work as a bank advisor for clients, corporate clients, but also individuals, and that was my first role. So in this role, I was basically in charge of offering different services, whether it was from a banking, financial perspective or insurance perspective, and that's really what set me up in the corporate world. But after a few years, I decided to shift into recruitment, which I did about 2 or 3 years in. And after probably about a year in, again, I had the feel that I could do something a bit different, and that's where I started to do informal trainings within the firm I was with. in Paris. And from that moment on, I was kind of seen from management, from someone that could actually deliver, quality training that could relate to people. And that's where I did the shift to learning and development and training back in 2008, actually, just around the financial crisis.
Okay. So that's a lot of experience that they carry from, I mean, not just in one department, across departments, from recruitment to training to sales, marketing, everything there. But I'm pretty sure when you made a switch from a stable job, which pays you a salary at the end of the month, to starting something on your own, right? So I'm pretty sure that there would have been some fears that you would have had back then. So could you talk a little more? I mean, I'm pretty sure that the ones who are listening in, I mean, some of our listeners are also entrepreneurs who are wanting to take that leap of faith. So what were your fears when you made that jump, Jim? And how did you manage to face them in the very journey?
Sure. So what really drove me, as I said, was my kids, and was the search for meaning. It's purpose in work. Sometimes it's hard to find, and I've been hopping from a job to another for a little while. I have to say before that, until I decided to make that shift. I'll be honest with you. I'm someone very spontaneous, and obviously I try to have conversation within the businesses I was working with at the time, as you said, in Australia. But the answer was not what I was expecting, as in someone else is doing the sustainability work within the organization. I wanted to be part of the conversation, but looks like I wasn't to be having a say with whoever was these people, and never pointing into who was these people. So I got unsatisfied, and after a little while, I just thought, you know what? I think there's a real gap when it comes to engaging and having people sharing what they have to say, what they could also do in respect of sustainability, and that's where I decided to shift and literally quit my job. So what were the fears I had at the time? Well, first, I never been an entrepreneur before, so that was one. I was wondering, what is it I'm gonna be doing? I wasn't really sure about it. Second was about how I'm going to be paying the bills. Obviously, we all have to pay the bills, so that was certainly quite a concern. And then the biggest concern was, what am I qualified in doing in respect again on trying to have a positive impact on people and planet, to keep it simple. So
Hmm.
that was really the key fears I was facing. But if I may say, as I said, 20 years in the making, I've been thinking about this moment for a long time. I wasn't really ever sure what it would be looking like, or what should I be, doing beforehand. So I just decided to give it a go. I was lucky enough to be in a situation where my wife is working full time, and as much as she'd like to reduce her hours, she's working full time. So I had, I suppose, a little bit of security from that perspective. She's been in a job for a long time, and that was certainly helping me. But yet, at the end of the day, when you decide to, change everything in your professional life slash personal life, because it's a massive personal life change as well, of course, it's just a matter of instinct. You have to feel that moment, and I think for me it was turning about 40, and I really felt I couldn't wait anymore. So yeah, that was really the key points.
So it is an instinctive decision that you made, because the default understanding is, the risk taking ability, the sooner you take the risk, I mean, in your 20s, that's the time period that you're encouraged to take risks, because even if you fail, you have failed too early, right? And there is less dependencies on you as an individual. I mean, you wouldn't have been married, you wouldn't have had children, but at the age of 40, you have taken this risk of making a jump to being an entrepreneur, and that requires definitely an applause. So well done, Jim. I think that calls for a congratulations on that, right? So
Thank
Jim,
you.
my next question is, I mean, now that you have started DD Carbonizer,
Mhm.
can you talk to me about what this organization does, and what are
Sure.
the kind of services that you guys provide to corporates?
Sure. So I started to elude on that point, but when I left, what I was really struck with is the fact that I was concerned, as I said, with climate and nature crisis. But yet, when I had a little bit of time on my hands, so I quit my job. I had about 2 or 3 months where I did a lot of research. I started, online courses, so free courses. You have plenty of them online, which again I can only advise for people to take. And that's where it really struck me. I was talking about a topic I did not understand. So
Mm,
that was the first, learning point of my new journey. How come I did not understand this, even though I was talking about it for quite a long time? So that was big learning there. The second learning was that after 20 years in business and trying over the last few years of my career in, the traditional sense of the word to engage on the topic within businesses, every time it was the same. Oh, somebody else is talking about it. Somebody else is handling this. And, you go back to your desk, you go back doing your job, the one you're paid for. And I could also see that there was no way to actually educate/engage people on these topics. Again, sustainability is not one topic, it's many different topics, as we'll sure talk a little bit more about in a moment. So based on this, I thought, well, if I am someone talking about it, concerned about it, but I don't understand it, that's one piece. And the fact that businesses, which obviously, as we know, need to do most of the work when it comes to sustainability and reducing their impact, there is no way to engage/educate. There must be something to be done there. So
mm,
that's really the starting point. Now, from then, during my shift, I got to again also engage with a lot of people in the space already. And one lady specifically, Laure, was back in Australia at the time, another French girl. And I started to engage with her, and she got to introduce me to the Climate Fresk, which we will talk about in a moment. As much as I was in the corporate space, a trainer, learning and development professional, I was delivering training. So it was what I tend to call now top down. I am the expert. I am the trainer. I am the subject matter expert. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to train you on such and such topic. Either it's around soft skills development, more technical skills, IT skills, you name it, right? But it was always, I'm the expert. You're going to be receiving that information
yeah.
and trying to take that in. Now, when it comes to climate and nature, I think education and engagement, that's the thing. We need to get people present physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's not something that is really easy to do when you're actually almost dumping information or data onto people.
Yeah.
We always, think about, giving figures to people. There is that many, increase in degrees, or there is that many tons of plastic being dumped into the environment, etc., etc. So the point is, the figures themselves don't necessarily work. The
Yeah.
point was then to create something that would deeply engage and immerse people into not just thinking, but thinking and being able to talk openly about this topic, because we also know that most people don't talk about it because it's overwhelming, it's scary, etc. But the point is, as I always say, just like in a couple, if you have a partner and you have issues with your partners, if
Come
you're
on.
not addressing those issues, then you might run into bigger issues. So the point is, let's talk about them and engage people from this part and educate them from there.
Yeah, I do agree on that because when it is about teaching, it is no more about information. I think experientially also the participants should get to understand what each of those concepts mean. Because if somebody were to come to me and say you have a carbon footprint of XYZ, I mean that does not make real sense in my head because I do not know what carbon footprint is or what that means for the whole planet, and this is where I believe trainers like yourself and the organization that you today run, where you have Climate Fresk workshop, we'll dive deep into that very concept later on towards the next segment of this podcast. But my question as a follow-up to that is climate anxiety a knowledge problem or a systems problem?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. That's one I thought of a lot. I think before I did shift, and even more since I did. So the way I see it is that we have both problem. We have an education problem because when you again look at the situation we're in, either it's in India, in Europe, in the US, etc., we are all on the same boat. When you're at school, you're not educated on the environment. You're not educated when you are doing your university degrees, etc. And you're not educated when you are within organizations. So basically, you're never educated on what should be the most important topic we talk about. What is the impact we have as humans on our environment? So there is definitely an issue when it comes to education. But let's face it, we also have a systems, we have many systems issues. I think where you make the link is that when you understand that education is or should be serving the point that with education we can actually not only fix the system but change the system.
Mm.
Because in a lot of ways, what we are trying to do now when it comes to sustainability is to reduce our impact, but not think dramatically how are we going to change that system. So we have both problems. But if we are not educated, how can we understand first the system we live in and how we have to move away from that very system?
Absolutely. So education becomes an integral part of the solution if we were to bring about change in the entire systems. I do agree on that. And just to add to that, in India at least, right from our high school learning, it is I mean, sustainability or the concepts of environment are part of the curriculum. So
Mhm,
pretty much every individual goes through that. They will learn about environment and some parts of sustainability and things like that. But the problem that we see is more it is seen as a informational subject where you read about it, you have an examination, you write those answers, you get your marks and you're done with that. There is no relevance that we see for the kind of experiential understanding or knowing of this very thing. So that is
mhm,
that is where I do see there's a problem in this, right?
mhm,
I mean, now that we have addressed the problem or the gap that exists in the present education system when it comes to understanding of sustainability or knowing of the environment in and around, this seems to be more of a systems problem to me. Because the educational system or the setup that we have built, I mean, at least in India, this has been going on for ages. The education system has not been changed or modified, though that I mean everything around the technology is kind of growing faster than before. We have AI that is every other day there is a new thing or a new advancement that is happening. But when we look at the education system, it is still a lot older. I feel there is a gap that the education system is having, so that it is unable to keep up to the present day requirements or needs. Right? Would you agree on that? Is it the same in the European context as well?
Look, I totally agree with this. People think, as per your point, people talk about sustainability in, at school. Yes, but that's a topic. It's not an overarching way to bring things together. And I think that's exactly the same, as far as I know, in the UK, as my kid is in the UK at school. In France, it's the same. And in many countries, again, a lot of geography teachers, for instance, would think they are the natural sustainability teachers. But unfortunately, time and time again, I could see they are not. They don't have the knowledge and the understanding.
Absolutely, absolutely, and of course there is so much development or adding of information that has happened in the recent past when it comes to sustainability, about the know-hows of how the global systems work when it comes to climate, how it works when it comes to ozone, how it works when it comes to air, water, energy, all of that, right? And the
Mhm,
implications of that in the industrial side is compliance driven, of course. And folks who are teaching these subjects in the universities and in colleges, they do not, or there is a gap that exists. That is what is required in the industrial side versus what is being taught in the schools when it comes to sustainability. So we'll deep dive into this very topic. So the second topic that we intended to discuss is to deep dive on the methodology, the practical and the experiential learning part. So you bought this word which is called Climate Fresk. sessions, right? Which you take up at Decarbonizer. So walk us through a Climate Fresk session. What actually happens in that 3 hours of workshop?
Sure. So, Roshan, the Climate Fresk is something that started in France, hence the interesting, not to say funny name, fresk as in fresco or mural. You talk about we have an issue with the system.
Mhm.
As I said, we need to understand the system. Climate Fresk is basically a system thinking tool to help people understand the big picture we are all part of, right? So it was created by an engineer who was, again, also here trying to educate people at university back 10 years ago, just after the Paris Agreement. And he could see that, dumping information on people was just not working. They
Yeah.
just couldn't connect the dots. So what he did, he read the IPCC reports, so the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and the reports they produce every 6 to 7 years. So we're talking about very lengthy, very technical and complex reports, right? So it's probably about 4,000 to 5,000 pages long. So for anyone out there, no disrespect to anyone, it's very complex to get. So what he did, he read those reports and he pulled out key pieces of information out of them. And he created over time about 42 cards where the aim of the game, because that's the thing, it's a gamified version of the climate science, is to piece things together, make sense of the cause and the consequences of climate change. So here we have a tool that is a game. So a lot of people can relate. Who doesn't want to play cards, right? So those cards are the starting point of this workshop. We
Okay.
are engaging people on the climate topic through these cards. And the aim of the game is basically by group of 7 people per table. So we have large tables and we bring 7 people physically if we can, or digitally if we can't, around this very table. And the aim is to make sense on the connections between the cards, between cause and consequence. So that's the starting point of the workshop.
I mean, that's very interesting because you're gamifying education there, which might be much more fun as compared to a regular chalk and board learning. But I mean, okay, so there are 7 people sitting across a table with 7 different cards. Is it only 7 cards, or are there more cards to be pulled out?
So we start with 7 cards for the first set, okay?
Okay.
Just to get people warm up a little bit. So here they go, and the instruction is simple. Place the cards in relation to each other from a cause to consequence sequence. So
Hmm.
here they have about 3 minutes to do that. And first, I have to say people are a little bit confused. First, because it's a format that is very different from the usual training. Second, because a lot of people are not very, it's not that easy for them to make sense of the cards, even though we talk about fossil fuels, we talk about increase in temperature, we talk about sea level rise, sorry. So they sort of know what's on the card, but not to really make sense of it. So it takes about those 3 minutes for people to kind of get it, and then suddenly something happens. The interaction between people get them to place them in relation to each other, and somebody would say, "Oh, I don't think that's correct," or "I think that's right. Actually, I've seen a documentary. I've heard someone talking about this." So suddenly the conversation happens, and that's what I tend to say where the magic happens. People connect with the topic, and they also connect with each other. Either they know each other because they're colleagues, either they don't know each other because they're just coming from different, parts of a business. So that's really step one and set number one of the cards. And once we've done this, we get people to keep going and keep building that fresco of climate.
Hmm.
And we have 5 sets in total to display basically those 42 cards and build the whole system we are all part of.
Very interesting, very interesting. So there are totally 42 cards, but does it mean that this Climate Fest sessions can only be handling 7 people at a time, or can you scale it up?
Very good question there as well. So that's the beauty of the tool. It's a train the trainer approach. So the point is for people that take part to then think, you know what, that was really enlightening, really engaging. I think I could use this in my work, in my community, in my school, you name it. You can use it really everywhere. So how it developed is through this train the 7 people, but we can do, if we wanted to, thousands of people at the same time. And I give you so the way it works is that you have one facilitator that can deliver to 2 tables at the same time. So 7 plus 7. So it's about 14 people. But then we can scale the number of facilitators. And I think, Guinness Book record was a couple of years ago in UAE when they done the COP there. And we had over 1,000 young students that took part in the Climate Fresk workshop in the same amount of 3 hours. So you can
How
scale
many? How
as
many
many
did you say?
people as
Is it 1,000 facilitators or 1,000 participants?
1,000 participants. Yeah.
Okay. So it can also be scaled. But does each of this group, let's say there are two facilitators, but is there an opportunity for these two groups to interact with each other, or would they be interacting among themselves?
So we tend to keep the group small enough for people to stay within this group. So if one facilitator is delivering to 2 tables, we have 14 people that will be interacting together. But most of the interaction will be on each table. And that's, I think, again, the key point, because the game has been refined over the years, and 7 is really the sweet spot. That's where we have enough people to have great interaction, not too many people for some people to sort of withdraw and take a step back to just observe and not interact, because we want everyone on board.
Yeah, just sort of curiosity with this thing. I mean, usually when we have a group discussion, there are some people within the group who are extroverts, as if we can call them so, because
Yeah.
they naturally go out and speak. They speak their thoughts out, and there are some introverts who like to keep quiet and not answer unless asked. So is it the role of the facilitator to engage with everybody within the group, or does the game itself allow for each individual to have an opinion or voice out their opinions?
I suppose it's a little bit of both, actually. The role of the facilitator is to ensure that whatever your style of communication is, that you are, you're feeling good, you're having, a good time, because that's very much part of the success of this game, of the workshop, is that everybody has a good time, right? But in the same time, the game, through the interaction with the cards, the interaction through different people, the fact that you have visuals obviously on the cards, get people to open up. And that's what we see often. The first round, the first set, often we see a couple of people probably not interacting that much, but over time they would gain confidence and they would interact even more. And of course, when this is not happening, it doesn't mean people are disengaged, but to your point, some people just need time to think, to analyze, and they might ask questions later on. So it's about keeping them put and ensuring, they're still in the right place, and the facilitator has a big role to play there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I mean, how has this very methodology or gamification of this format of training seen success in the corporate side?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
I mean, how have you seen this very model of training using cards as a way of engaging with folks seen within the corporate space? Because corporates are used to corporate trainings where you have an LED screen or a big canvas where there is a presentation made and one guy keeps talking, the rest of them take notes. So how is the acceptance level of this format within the corporate world?
Well, that's what has been quite amazing with the Climate Fresk, is that when it was created for communities, for people, so not for businesses. But of course, people do have work, and a number of them, again back in France, thought, well, I had a great time. I learned a great deal. I had great interaction with people. I think that would be very worthwhile doing in my organization. And that's where it started to penetrate the business world. And a lot of corporates, if you look in France, most of the largest corporates in France, we're talking, LVMH, we're talking all the banks, Société Générale, Crédit Agricole, etc. They've all rolled out the Climate Fresk very broadly to help with, again, engaging and educating their staff on these topics and supporting their sustainability strategies. So that's really where I started. And obviously now I am based in the UK, but the Climate Fresk is now strong of 2.2 million participants.
Okay.
And we have thousands and thousands of organizations that are taking it up as well. I'm working at the moment with Bank of America, to name it, rolling out the Climate Fresk globally. So we're starting in the UK end of last year, and the aim is to scale through the entire organization this year, actually. So that's just one example on how it's done. And
very interesting to learn that global organizations are also taking
okay.
up this very model of training, and given that this would allow for people within the organization also to take it up and become facilitators themselves. So there will be more like an ambassador who would be set up within the organization who would then be talking about the necessities for taking up this sustainability initiatives within the organization as well. But overall, how long does this session last for, Jim?
There is a reason why. So as I said, first, it's about understanding. So it's about coming together, making sense of those calls, having interaction and conversations. And I think to your point about education before, education is important. But what is even more important is the conversation we're having on top of being more informed,
Yeah.
understanding, because that's what people tend to do. They talk about something, and again, not blaming anyone, that's the thing I used to do myself, talking about a topic I did not understand. So once they understand, then they are much better placed to have conversations. And of
Yeah.
course, in a business context, have conversation in how does this information relate to my organization of the products we are creating, the services we are delivering, etc. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing is that the understanding part is just the foundation. Once we've done this, we are the second phase basically is for people to understand the risks, the opportunities as well, but also the dependencies of climate and nature in relation to their business. So suddenly they're connecting the dot between the system we all live in and the very situation they are in, because you can't change the world, you can change what is around you, and that's what's very important. So that's the second step. The third step, once we are understanding with our brains, but also very much connected emotionally to this topic, what is it we are going to do?
Yeah.
And this workshop is empowering people to think, you know what, now I get it. Now I know the relationship it has on my life, on my community, but also on my work. I have probably a lot of cues and ways to think about practical things I can put in place today, tomorrow, the week after, in order to move into the action space. So that's how the workshop works: head, heart, and mind, and hands. Sorry. So
Hands,
that's the
hands.
three steps. Yeah.
So this entire workshop is just carried over for how many minutes?
So again, yeah, we're looking at 3 hours.
3 hours.
So that would, yeah, 3 hours. And in a business context, to be honest with you, it tends to go over the 3 hours for the very simple reason that one, people are now engaged and very much interested, because at the end of the day, everybody is trying to do the right thing. But most people don't know what it looks like or why we should actually care.
Yeah.
So a lot of people want to stay longer because that's where the conversation and the magic really happens, is that they want to be part of the solution. They want to implement things. They want to talk to each other, the colleagues, to say, hey, what do we do now? And that's what, again, is absolutely amazing with this workshop. And again, we do not just this one, but many others on different topics using the same approach. That's where we see people empowered and willing to put things into practice,
Very
which
interesting.
we, of course, need a lot.
See, any solution that we come up with, there is a natural tendency for a certain segment of the society to accept that very solution, and a certain part of that or certain percentage of the society to disregard that solution, right? And even I mean the same is true even with the methodology of educating. Some prefer a certain methodology of teaching. So I'm pretty sure that the Climate Frisk medium of teaching or educating people on the climate risk and climate change and everything around that, there would be a natural acceptance or engagement that people would have. But naturally, there would be some amount of resistance as well, right? From within the groups, or perhaps somebody is hesitating with this format of things like that, right? So what are the few resistance or kind of roadblocks that you would face while undertaking a training of this sort?
Okay. There can be resistance. I mean, any format can indeed face resistance. So with the Climate Fresk, I think the first resistance in a lot of ways is the time. A lot of people would beforehand think, we can't spend 3 hours on this topic alone. I mean, we usually don't. So that's, I think, the first resistance. But interesting enough, as soon as they are in the room, as I said, they tend to be the one wanting to stay longer because now they really get it, right? So that's one point. Now, in terms of resistance, I'll be honest with you, in terms of the format per se, it's really working amazingly for a lot of different audiences, from boardrooms to leadership teams to employees at large, either you're white collar or blue collar. We have great engagement, and again, that's where the facilitator is also important in the sense that it's facilitating that conversation, making sure the workshop is going along nicely, and we get to a point where after a bit of a tough time around the middle, as in the situation is not great, right? So people really being conscious of this. It's about coming back up and making sure everyone thinks, you know what? Yeah, we can act collectively here in this room. So I'm sure if we all get together and put things in place, we can. So the resistance could happen potentially with some skeptics as well, right? We always have some skeptics, but again, the beauty of this format is that because it's not an expert sharing insight or information to people, it's people coming together. It's very it's very flat in terms of the structure.
Yeah.
So the skeptics that may appear here and there at the beginning would be the one resisting, asking questions, doubting the information. But if you just ask them to stick along and go through the different sets up to the set 5, what you see is that, and I've seen that time and time again, those people would be the one asking more and more questions at the end, or throughout, because they can now see that it makes sense. And the disinformation, the wrong information is going to disappear to give place to something new. And that's where new interaction will happen. Now, so that's probably another point in terms of potential resistance. But again, it's quickly and easily overcome. The last thing in terms of this format is that, again, it's not a silver bullet when it comes to taking action. It's helping people to understand, come to a place where they think they can be part of the solution, but yet again, we can't do the job for them. So some people would say, it was a great time, but what's next? So what do we do after this? And that's where I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later. You have to stick with a group. You have to be coming together and regularly, checking in, putting things in place and looking at how people are doing. It's not a silver bullet. It's a education engagement piece, yet it can't do the work for people.
Absolutely. And it's also, interesting for me to learn that time and skeptics could be the two likely resistance that you would face as a facilitator within that room. But out of curiosity again, I mean, when I learned about this very methodology of training using cards, cards seems to be the very central object of this entire training material, right? So who designs this card, and what is the kind of information that you put on these cards?
Very good question there. So I've mentioned that it is based on the IPCC report, right? So it's all the science we have to date when it comes to climate change. So this workshop is really backed by science. That's the first point. Those 42 cards were designed initially by the founder, Cedric Ringenbach, again, back in France. But he hasn't worked alone. He has worked with a lot of different people over the first years of refining the workshop. A lot of people, with a science background. So we have people actually working with the IPCC itself, but a lot of other people in the climate space to make sure that what was covered was, of course, correct and relevant to get people to understand. So what are on those cards? Well, it would be great in the podcast if we could show actually a map of a Climate Fresk that is complete, but we talk about the different elements that we have to cover. First, we're talking about human activities. So we're looking at transportation, we're looking at buildings, we're looking at food, agriculture, and also industry. So that's the 4 main cards in terms of human activities. Then we talk about what is critical in our situation. fossil fuels. We burn fossil fuel to create energy to power our societies. Either you're going to work with a plane or a car, either you're having a house or office or roads, etc. So all this is powered by fossil fuel. And then we start looking at the consequences of emissions. Of course, when we burn fossil fuel, we have emissions, the famous emissions we are trying to reduce. And we have to understand that the link is between the way we live and how much fossil fuel we burn, okay?
Yeah.
And once we understand this, we understand that burning fossil fuel and emitting CO2, but also other gases through agriculture is creating impact on different ecosystems. So the ocean is absorbing a lot of CO2, but also the atmosphere is absorbing a lot of CO2.
Yeah.
And all this has consequences. The air, the atmosphere is getting warmer, as we know, but the ocean also is getting warmer and more acidic. So we have cards showing that we have consequences on the soil, on the air, but also on the oceans. And of course, we have cards around glaciers. A lot of ice is melting, and this ice ends up in the oceans, making the sea level rise. So once we start to have all this together, we're starting to look at the weather, extreme weather events that we have, droughts, floods, also storms, a monsoon that would be much stronger, etc., than usual. So all this eventually has again impact on different ecosystems, biodiversity, for instance, but of course on agricultural yields. And I know, for instance, and that's one example I share regularly during workshops, in Asia, in India, for instance, you have lots of droughts, but also lots of floods impacting agricultural yields. Sorry, and this has, of course, impacts on people that have to move away to find better land, maybe to grow food. But of course, are they going to be welcome where they're going? Probably not. So we have this displacement creating conflicts.
Climate migration.
And creating health, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it's really a whole mapping of the situation. So hopefully answering your question comprehensively there.
Yeah. And it's a very comprehensive answer that you also provided me, because each of the card is representing maybe one part of the entire aspect that you're going to cover. And over the span of 3 hours, everybody gets to talk, discuss, and be a part of that entire conversation. Perhaps that leads to a better experiential experience, leading to better understanding of the concepts, and making them realize what the problem is and how they are part of the problem, right? But as you rightly mentioned, one other resistance that you come across in this seminars or workshops that you conduct is, okay, Jim, we have learned about all of this. What next? Right. So what do we do with all this information? Perhaps that is one question that you might be asked. So my question is this: what happens when workshop ends, but the systems don't change? And how important are local communities and the follow-up structures following this workshop?
That's a fantastic question, Roshan. So this is where I think people need to understand. We need to understand the big picture, but yet, to your point, we can't change the world just by saying, now I get it. Now, what do I do? So this is where, at the end of a workshop, when people feel that they get it, and also they feel they can be part of the solution, they need to gather up with the right people, if I may say.
Mm-hmm.
So in the space of climate, and I would say nature as well, because that's, of course, very important too, even more important. People need to be able to connect with like-minded people. So if I stick with the Climate Fresk, this is, as I said, a format where you can train the trainer. So you can become a facilitator taking part into a workshop. And that's something that happens to me. When I started to deliver workshops, I connected with other facilitators. So it was great. I now had a space where I could talk openly about this topic that usually people don't talk about. So that's massively important. Second, I could keep learning, keep hearing about stories, hearing about, figures, data, whatever it may be, and deliver better workshops, which of course gave me even more confidence delivering them. But the most important is finding a community. So if it's around the Climate Fresk community or any other workshop that we run, that's amazing. But it doesn't have to be. You can simply, now let's imagine you go with a few friends and you take part into your workshops or a few colleagues. And then you may think, well, from now on, we can create something. That's the spirit. As you were saying at the very start of the podcast, I decided to make the shift and quit my job to look for a climate job or create my own climate job.
Right.
But yet, if you are within an organization, that may be the best place for you to start something. So it's not going to be entrepreneurship; it might be intrapreneurship, right?
Yeah.
So
Within the
within the
organization.
organization. So you can create a group of people within an organization, again, within a community. And that's the thing, you can only be two. That's a starting point. And then trying to rally people with you on a lot of different topics. Again, climate relates to, of course, carbon emissions. But in a lot of ways, we're talking also about pollution, plastic pollution, which is, dramatic in a lot of places. We can talk about impact on different ecosystems. If you live close to the sea, and I know in India you're obviously surrounded by the Indian Sea. There is so many things you can do when you are close to the sea, right? So looking at trying to learn about different species, but also try to see how you can educate people around you about the impact locally is happening. There is so many things you can think of. The point is to start somewhere, and again, you just need a couple of people to start. So that would be my advice. Once you've taken part into a workshop, you're awakened, put it into motion. Move into something that is practical for you. Don't think about solving the world's problem from where you are. Think about solving your local problems. Start with your neighbors, start with your communities, your church, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's a great place to go on from there.
I 100% agree on that because education is definitely fundamental to building a sustainable society of tomorrow, right? But it is not something that can be managed or created by a single individual. It is more of a community effort that is required to be able to move the society in that very, very direction. So, but again, one of the challenge that most of us face, I mean, even at Carbon Mandal provide workshops, corporate workshops on multiple topics, like LC life cycle assessment, CBAM, and all of this, right? But towards the end of each of the workshop, yes, the knowledge is transferred. They know why it is important, how it is relevant to their business, and everything there. But building a community or those people, identifying those like-minded people who can be brought together and nurtured, because forming a group is easy, but nurturing the group takes effort. There has to be a few folks who are genuinely interested in the within the topic and within that very community, right? So if you were a facilitator or a trainer wanting to build a community and nurture that community, what suggestions would you provide that community admin per se?
Well, that's a tough question, I have to say. Yeah, and I know that's a tough point in terms of how do you get traction? How do you lead a group? How do you set up a group in the first place? Well, we have to be honest with you, with each other, Roshan, and I'm sure with people listening as well. It's not going to be necessarily an easy job.
Yeah.
We need people that take risks. We need people that lead the way. We need people that really, do anything they can to bring these formats or bring groups together. Now, once you've started to create a group, I think the most important part is to understand what is important for people within this group. Because we're all different, right? Some
Yeah.
people would like animals on land. Some people would like the ocean. Some people would like something else. So the point is to understand why are people joining this group? What is the rationale for these people? I think that's really the step one. And once you understand this, you can look into what are they interested in? What do I need to do? What do I need to talk about to get them to stick together, to get
Right.
them excited, to get them inspired to do the next step? So, I think as we know in this space and many others, storytelling is important. We need to be able to inspire people and get them to think, what he just said there really resonated with me. I'm interested to learn more. I'm interested to investigate. I'm interested to bring a conversation together, maybe with my family going home, whatever it may be. So I think it's really about, I was talking about agriculture yields dropping and farmers, suffering really hard due to this. When it comes to food, we are all on the same place, right? We all need to eat, otherwise, there's none of us. So I think could be a good place to start. But again, that could be an easy one. But then there is many other things that interest people, health, well-being, whatever it may be, climate will have an impact, if not already, on people. So it's about really finding this, and then it's about pulling that thread, creating more content that is in relation to this, having maybe inspirational speakers that can talk about their experience firsthand. I mean, what I'm doing here at the end of the day is nothing else than just my story, right? And there is millions of stories of people doing, small things, but if we pile up all those small actions, that's the solution to all our problems. Because at the end of the day, as I always say, we all are collectively and individually the problems. So if we shift that on the head, we can all be, doing small actions to be part of the solution as well.
I agree. I agree. I mean, it is a very challenging question to answer because building a community, nurturing a community is no easy task because each of us have our own perspective, our own take on the. I mean, even if the subject that we are addressing is the same, all of us have a different perspective. Our incentives are very different. So understanding the voices of different stakeholders within the community becomes extremely important. I think that you have addressed that point. But the one of the thing that caught my attention is storytelling for inspiration. I think that's key and central to keeping and community engaged for a long period of time. But also to add to that, Jim, what I felt was even more important is coming up with engaging activities or engagemental exercises where a group of people can come together either physically or virtually and then do something about it. That would keep the community growing and engaging. But Jim, thank you. I think you're giving us a new methodology of training. Climate Fresk, you have explained in detail what it stands for, what it does, and how it is different from the regular or traditional medium of training, right? My next question to you is largely from the corporate angle. Here in India, I mean, India is a country of around 140 crore people, which is around 17 to 18% of the global population. And,
Yeah.
and I say this in all of my workshops and trainings as well that we host 18% of the global population. But when it comes to climate risk, we are perhaps one of the most riskiest places on earth to be there because on the climate risk index, we are in the top 10. That is exposing 18% of the global population to climate risk, right? Which means that the necessity for solutions are more relevant here in India as compared to rest of the places. I mean, if you consider Scandinavian nations, they're not as high on the climate risk index, right? But even having said that, and when I have these conversations, there is still a resistance that we see from the corporate world when it comes to sustainability, because sustainability is seen as a cost center, not as a business asset, at least as of now. So most of the initiatives that has been taken up by the corporates here in India are compliance driven, not voluntary, right? So my question to you is this, Jim, that what do you see would happen if the corporates don't take or don't get a better understanding of climate risk? What would happen then? Why is it
Well, I
so
think
significant for them to learn about this?
it's might be one of the biggest and most important question there. A lot of leaders to date think about climate as just another thing on the agenda. We were talking about schools earlier. It's just one topic. We're going to cover it, and then we have a test, and then we'll move on. I think that's the misunderstanding that a lot of people need to get over, in the sense that, as you said, in India, but not only in India, in a lot of places in Europe, compliance and regulation are there, which is a good thing. But a lot of people just think about that as a ticking box exercise. Why is it more important than compliance? Because again, climate is going to knock at the door, if not already, if you have facilities, if you're flooded, if you have people not able to go to work, if you have people working outside and it's 40+ degrees, well, they can't work outside, or not in good conditions, or not without risking their own lives, which, of course, if that's your employees, that's not going to be good for you.
Yeah.
Another big one is around consumers. We are all consumers. We're talking about food, but so many other products that we consume. A lot of organizations don't understand the risks of reputation that you're not doing the right thing for your own employees, as I was just saying, but also for your own consumers. Whatever you're putting within your products, etc., may have an impact on people and on planet. So there is so many risks. I mean, legal risks. Regulations are ramping up, globally. You were talking about the CBAM coming into full force in 2026. So we just started the year. So I think that's a lot of risk that people need to understand. Regulation might be the first one, hence compliance is so high on the agenda. But at the end of the day, if you can't hire your employees, or if you can't keep your employees, they can see you're not doing the right thing, you're going to lose your workforce. So you're not going to be able to produce. Reputation, as I was saying. There is so many risks. I can give you a full list. There's probably about 10, 15 different risks.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People need to connect the dots in understanding what the big situation is and how does this relate to my organization and my people and my consumers. I think it would be really foolish to think that the situation is going to resolve itself, by itself. And most importantly, it's even worse to think that wait and see what others do to kind of do the same. You have to be leading, or tomorrow you can shut down your business, in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's one of the question that I had, because a lot of corporates in India are playing the waiting game, because compliances is now mandating them to report on a few aspects, like the very one that you just mentioned, CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. And I had this experience with one of the senior management folks in one of the organization. I wouldn't want to name the organization. So he said, why is it necessary for us to report on our carbon emissions to an importer based out of Europe? Now, these are questions that are popping out in the senior management, and I understand that it is coming from a place of ignorance, and this is where I feel education is so vital, so important, that especially people or folks in the senior management get to understand what climate risk stands for, and they don't just do it as a compliance requirement. Rather, they understand the significance of taking initiatives like this, because if a business were to sustain for a long run, and if you are to see the next generations to applaud us, we have to be doing it right now. Otherwise, we'll be going down in history as that generation of folks who let down the entire human species, perhaps.
Well, unfortunately, that's the risk, and that's where we will be judged as leaders. Is have we been able to, take our responsibilities and do the right thing? And that's the thing, a risk for a lot of organizations, I suppose in India, to your point about the CBAM, is that they're not going to be able to provide their goods and services to other organizations because they're not complying. So then they're just left on the side of the road. Nothing they can do about it. If they're not taking action, they're going to stay there. So yeah, that's something that they really need to integrate and act upon.
Yeah, I do agree on that. One other thing that struck me during that conversation with this gentleman is also this, that uh, every consulting job comes with a cost, and the immediate question is what is ROI, the return on investment, right? So everything is seen from an economic angle here, where the compliance or complying with CBAM is seen as a cost center, right? And his immediate question is, okay, I invest X amount of money now. By when can I get it back? So my question to you is this, Jim, that what is the cost of waiting out for Indian businesses, according to you?
Well, my simple answer would be that we can't do any business on a dead planet.
Yeah.
So, simply put, if you look at the climate, but not only the climate, the nature and biodiversity crisis, I mean, we've entered the sixth mass extinction. We're losing species at an unprecedented rate. We need all these species on Earth, just like, I don't know if we need us because we are creating a big mess, but that's the point. We are part of all these species. And if we're not addressing these issues, we can't do business. So simply put, if you're not taking action, well, you're not serious about running a business. We talk about sustainability from a financial perspective. Yes, we need to make money to run a business, but we also need fresh air. We also need water. We also need food to be able to run a business. And unfortunately, the direction of travel is that at this rate, we're gonna, lose this capacity to do businesses. And some areas, to your point, India is indeed fragile when it comes to the risks. Whole regions are gonna be depleted of people because they're gonna have to go somewhere, or they're just gonna literally, suffer and die where they are, which is not something that is acceptable. Whoever you are, wherever you live on this planet, we are all part of the same planet.
Yeah.
And my belief is that we all have a chance and a responsibility to do better. And that's where we need to engage everyone across the board, from leaders to anyone in society.
Right. All right. So, I mean, we have so far had a very deep dive conversation into the importance of education, training on climate risk, understanding why it is important, especially for corporates to be, because as you rightly said, you can't do business on a dead planet. I think it kind of summarizes the entire conversation so far. But again, let's assume that the training has been taken for a corporate. They understand what climate change is and what is the necessity to take climate action as a way of countering the very problem. Where do you see the biggest execution gaps today? Once, let's say, because we undertake a program or a workshop by name 5 Steps to Building Sustainable Business, right? And the first step that we have said there is educate, because education is something that we see as a first step to sustainability, where the workforce understands why it is significant, why it is relevant, and how they are part of the problem. That is step one. The step two that we recommend is measuring, because if you simply say sustainability, there is no definitive or a quantitative figure to it. So the second step that we always recommend is to measure your sustainability performance. It could be a carbon footprint, it could be a water footprint, or it could be energy footprint, or whatever the relevant metrics is for that very industry or in that very geography, right? So the question that I asked you is, where do you see the execution gap exists? Do you see that in the European context, or would you have a recommendation for Indian businesses?
Look, I think the biggest gap that I see is the leadership gap. We need to have leaders that indeed understand the situation, but not only understand, that take action that makes sense as a result.
Right.
And yet, time and time again, having weak leaders is, I think, the biggest issue. We can't solve that problem, as I said, without people, engaging with it, but taking responsibilities, taking the lead. And that's what we lack. We lack, political leadership. We lack also, corporate leadership. And in a lot of ways, to my point a little bit before, some people are trying to reduce their impact, but is it going to be enough? Is it going to dramatically change the picture we have at the moment? Personally, I don't think so. It's not just by working around the edges that we're going to solve the problem. We need to dramatically change and shift the way we think before we can shift the way we act. And that's the massive gap we can see. But then there's no fatality. It's not because the CEO is not driving this sustainability agenda that as a leader within the business, you can't do your fair share. And that's also linked to my point about starting local. You can't change the world. You can change people around you, your communities, etc. It's the same at work. You need to create a group of people. You need to lead by example, first thing, right? But you need to create a group, even if it's just in a business unit. You need to show that driving that change, changing those behaviors, is creating more purpose, is creating more value for the business. And that's going to inspire as a ripple effect further up and on the sides of the business.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. There's no fatality. It's not to say, well, the leadership is doing nothing, I'm not going to do anything. Well, that would be a bit too, that's going to be leaving for someone else to solve the problem, where everyone needs to step up. So I think that's one way to look at it. In terms of execution per se, again, people tend to, unfortunately, in tough times, not invest into delivering on the sustainability strategy, for instance. And they tend to focus a lot on, as we said, compliance and regulation, which is fair, but unfortunately, this is taking too much of the budget. And this is, again, where leveraging all your workforce through workshops such as the Climate Fresk, the Biodiversity Fresk, etc., can literally help you lift up the whole businesses without having to invest millions or thousands within the business. You empower people. They want to do the right thing. They're going to support. They're going to talk about it. They're going to advocate for it. And that's how you don't need 100 people in your sustainability team. You might just need a couple of people to deal with the compliance part. And the rest of the employees would really do the hard work to lift you up as a business. That's really how I conceive the group effort.
Very, very good take on that. I think the 2 points that you made is one, not having a very strong conscious leadership at the realm. Perhaps that is extremely significant for a business or a corporate to be doing significantly well in the coming days, and not investing early enough is also one of the gap that you have highlighted. Because I mean, even I have this discussion with our clients as well, because the cost of decarbonization is only going to go up in the coming years. So the early that you make an investment, perhaps it would work out cheaper, as having this waiting out game, that you wait for the things to change, and you just wait, because the cost of waiting is just adding up. Jim, thank you so much. I have one last question, and this question is personal. It is coming from me. So, where can sustainability consulting partners like ourselves at Carbon Mandal, where we provide ESG strategies, carbon accounting, CBAM readiness, long-term climate roadmaps, among the many other services that we provide, meaningfully support organizations to move forward from awareness to action? Because the gap is that awareness to action, right? Education would bring about awareness, then the thing to follow is action. So where can we as an organization add value in that very space?
Well, I think that's the critical question, in the sense that awareness can only do so much, education can only do so much, but then we need to do the work. And an organization like Carbon Mandal, I think, is really well placed to be, that hand that follow after being enlightened, is, give me a hand, I'm going to help you get to the next step. Where you, I think, help a lot would be in mapping what needs to happen, walking people through the stepping stones. Again, we can't fix the big problem. We can fix one problem at a time and have a plan to move forward this. And as experts in your space, you can talk, the technical language as much as the business language, which I think is very important. And to look at people in the way that they can see that the change they're doing now is going to be fruitful, in the days and months and years to come. And with that strong hand, I think people feel reassured and more confident to actually move forward. In a nutshell, I think that's where your support would help a lot.
Thank you for that advice, Jim. It gives me a much more reason to continue doing what we are doing at Carbon Mandal. Thank you for spending the last close to 90 minutes talking to me, engaging with me, and answering all my questions so patiently. And I honestly have learned something new today. I mean, that's the reason why I enjoy hosting the podcast, because I'm a learner, I'm a listener. I enjoy talking to people who have much more to share. And thank you for all the gold nuggets that you have provided today, talking about Climate Fresk. We have covered a wide range, or a broad range of topic, the significance of education, the problem with the education system that currently exists. We also looked at the new methodology of training, and why corporate trainings are so significant and important for businesses to get that readiness, awareness, and feeling a part of the bigger problem, and acting. I mean, how do we move towards awareness to action? I think we also address that very, very point. So Jim, thank you. You have my gratitude.
Well, thank you so much, Roshan, for reaching out. And Decarboneaser is a global organization based out of the UK, but we're having more and more conversation in Asia as well, including India. So I'm really happy if I could share a bit of wisdom there. And certainly my key point here would be, for anyone listening, if we're not taking risks now, it might be too late tomorrow. So let's not wait any longer. It might be uncomfortable, it might be confusing at times, but the only thing is, just like what you just said, Roshan, is we're doing the right thing. So we have to keep going, and we have to embark more people with us. So let's carry on doing that.
Thank you for giving that lovely parting words. For listeners who wish to get in touch with Jim, we will drop his LinkedIn link in the description of this podcast, and also link to the Decarbonizer website. Jim, thank you so much. It's an absolute privilege talking to you. I'll